Let me start with Chimeze. Chimeze, can you start with us on the takeaways from the last class?
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yes, my takeaway from the last class basically is knowing the difference between procurement and purchase. Before that class, I used to think they are the same thing, and it was really an eye opener, knowing that procurement has to do with some processes, to getting services, and again those litigations to contract fraud, where you use a segregation of duties to manage a situation where a personnel who notices that an item requires replacement is the same person who is bringing a supplier to for the replacement, and also using staff shifting for a personnel who has happened to be too long in a particular position. That's for me the lesson learned in that class.
Thank you so much. All right, Emmanuel E.
Good evening, class. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, welcome.
So my takeaway from the last class was I was just thinking about what Chimeze said. So the contract fraud, how to mitigate against this contract fraud, was very useful to me, understanding that. Also, the reason to outsource FM services. In my mind, I always felt one of the major reasons to outsource was financial basis alone. But the understanding that you don't give out your core services out to FM service was an eye opener for me. Understanding why you don't do that and when to outsource and when not to outsource, and also the understanding of bid award selection criteria was also, because it's like you said in the last class, we are also used to going with the lowest bid, not necessarily looking into the technical aspect or any other part, just the lowest bidder, regardless of your specification or whatever, just give it to the lowest person. So that understanding of the bid award selection criteria was good for me, and that was something I took away from the last class.
Okay, thank you very much. Vianana.
All right, good evening, sir. Good evening, class. Okay, I think I could relate with the discussion in that I could easily apply it to some of the recent events that happened just before the class, where for one of the contracts, a PO that was issued for a purchase order for a roof repair contract, the purchasing officer did not take advantage of the retention clause and the defect liability clause. So imagine where we did a roof repair and it was asking us to pay the vendor 100% without even confirming that the work is effective. And while we were still trying to process the payment, it rained and there were lots of leakages. So at that point, it was a bit of a difficult one to handle, because you have issued a contract to say pay on completion.
On delivery.
Yeah, on delivery. And here, so, but somehow we were able to argue out to say, well, is this subject to confirmation? So please accept 80% now. And when you finish the repair, you take the 20%. Somehow the vendor agreed, but at the back of my mind, I was praying that the man will not insist on full payment. So the implication is that we also need to checkmate the procurement guys, because some of them may not be technically experienced. So it's not enough to say I've committed the process to procurement and we go to sleep. We must also be sure that we are getting the best value from the procurement process.
Very good.
For me, that is
very good. Thank you very much. That's very nice. Who's there again now? I'm not seeing anybody in this class, so all of you are on ghost mode. Seriously? Are we going to be in ghost mode all through today? You don't want to give your takeaway from the last class? All right, Victor. Aha. See your fine face where you hide. Eh?
I'm not hiding the face. It's just that once in a while the network shifts and I have to turn off my camera.
I know. I know. You know what we have agreed on now is, as you come to class, show your face. You understand? As you observe the network and you now need to put off the video, we understand. But to come to class in ghost mode is not acceptable at all. Show your face. Let's see how it works for you, okay? If the network works throughout, then leave your face on. If the network disturbs, then you can put it on video off, okay? Yes, Victor, go ahead.
Sir, can I turn off my video now?
Yes, turn it off and speak.
My major takeaway from the last class was on the service level agreement. I also brought out the definition for it, which I would like to ask if it's still accurate. The definition you gave us was it is a negotiated agreement between the service provider and the customer. So I also said if it is the negotiation that results to an agreement between the contractor and the client, I wanted to ask if I was still right on that definition.
On the third award criteria for unique service.
Yes, sir. I know my definition and your definition were almost the same. I wanted to know if, like I said, it is the negotiation that resulted to an agreement. I wanted to know if that was still in line with your definition.
That's definition of procurement, right?
Several levies agreement.
Okay, service level agreement. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. That definition is not bad. Just that the understanding of service level as including not just the negotiation. You know, negotiation as a word, we tend to see it as negotiating money. You understand? But if negotiation as a word is understood as broadly as it should be understood, which means you are negotiating both the services, the scope, the service protocol, the specification, as well as the cost of the work, then yes, negotiation that leads to an agreement is a good definition of service level agreement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. And the things that should be included in the service level.
Were you asking a question?
No, sir. I'm continuing, sir.
Okay, thank you.
It should state the objective that is to be achieved.
Exactly. Why putting the service level together? Good.
And also
all right.
The standard and expectation of the customer should
Mhm.
also be included.
Okay.
Should also give a report for measuring those expectations.
Very good.
If there is, it serves as a tool for penalty and compensation.
Super.
Right, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. That was elaborate. Thank you. Ngozi, you want to throw up something for us?
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
What I picked from the last class is that we need to emphasize the specification for any contracts we're giving out, and it should be done at the inception, so that when you conclude on the pricing, you don't go back because you turn up new parameters for the contract. So it's a basic, it's a fundamental thing. So we should take note of that in any procurement or contract process.
Excellent. Thank you. That was very fantastic. Daniel, let's hear from you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, the key points I actually picked in the last lectures were how to do it. First of all, pre-qualification. That's the need for you to actually pre-qualify any of your service providers before you actually sign off on any or award them any contracts actually, because most times, actually, let me give I actually get to now relate it with what happened to me recently. I was actually bidding for a certain, to manage a certain 5-story building or four-story building somewhere in Ikoyi. They had actually, one of the landlords had actually preferred for me to actually handle that project because he has already seen me working on somewhere before, but he had to get the buy-in of his co-landlord. So while we were carrying out the interview online, one of the questions that they asked me was that, after seeing everything that I have said, do I have the financial muscle to cushion some expenses maybe before I get payment? Something like that. Do I have this financial back there? So at that point, I knew that I know that I don't have that capacity and I said no. So, and then I don't know whether that was one of the things that made them say, okay, no, maybe we'll have to consider another person who has that financial muscle. That for me, that made that particular aspect of knowledge kick into my head that, okay, that is pre-qualification in practice, actually, getting to know all the aspects of the service provision that the clients or stakeholders will want.
Yeah.
So as I didn't, and then since I didn't feel up to that, maybe that was why they now diverted. So there's a good need actually going forward, even for you who is going to bid for a job, to actually know the kind of jobs that you can bid for and what could actually count against you. If you needed to get some backing before going for that bidding, you should be able to prepare your grounds before going into that.
Exactly.
And then also the idea of the input and output specifications, where in some cases the client gives you the specifications, which is the input, and then for the output, where you as a service provider, especially for specialized services, gives the specifications. So that for me, those were the actually the takeaways that I picked from the last lecture.
Okay, super. Thank you so much. Who's there again? Okay. Adekule John, do you want to speak?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah. My take home from the last class was the difference between purchasing and procurement. I used to think procurement is the same thing as purchasing. So from the last class, I was able to learn that purchasing is just casual buying of items from the market. Why procurement is a systematic process by which an organization reaches a formal contract for the purchase of goods or services.
Fantastic. Yes, thank you very much. That was good. Okay, so who wants to speak before I close the session?
I'm here.
Okay, Wayne, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, my take home for last week was actually how to pre-select your vendors. We'll talk about, we'll check their technical know-how, and if they have the financial muscle to handle some jobs. And we also talk about referral, some of the jobs they have done. If somebody referred them to us, that means they have done a good job before that made that person refer those jobs to us. And the difference between purchasing and leasing. The leasing is just purchasing and
leasing. Yeah.
No,
okay, you're not doing buying and leasing, you are doing purchasing or procurement. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. We said purchasing is just one, just normal buying and buying something from the shelf, just like we do every day. While procurement is a systematic way of reaching an agreement, is a systematic way for an organization to reach an agreement of purchasing something. So they are different. although I'm kind of new to a lot of terms on facility management, but I'm picking up.
Very good.
I'm
Thank
into,
you.
yeah, I'm into automobile. So a lot of this thing also apply to me.
Very good.
We sometimes require the service of other skilled men and other skilled men in some of our vehicular work. So this thing also help a lot, especially the, what they call it again, I think something defect when
deferred maintenance. Okay, that's good. And the facility condition index is applied to motor vehicles. That's very correct.
I'm telling you a lot of it. So I'm trying to match it up together with kind of work.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much. Thanks, Wayne. That's fantastic. Okay, so we're going to take a session of troubleshooting anything you might have come across that you want us to troubleshoot for you. Any problem issues that you have encountered. I like that robust discussion taking place in your, that was another platform, not your platform. We had this elaborate discussion in the alumni platform about how to ascertain useful life and how to indicate replacement dates in assets that are old that you're managing. And it was quite interesting. Is there anything you are dealing with that you probably need some help with? All right, Vianana, let's hear from you. You're muted.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Right now, my department is being resourced and being reorganized. The former head of facility and project was redeployed to a higher role. All right, and as at that time, I was still the maintenance facility maintenance coordinator. So naturally, I was gunning for that role in his absence. But it happened that management had another strategic direction. Yeah, so which for me was also okay because we provide support to a lot of our projects apart from the facility management services. We also support the company projects in different manufacturer functions. So they wanted to replace the head of project and facility maintenance, and the thinking is that it should be an architect.
Oh, wow.
The thinking of management. And sometimes with management decision, you don't want to speak against it.
Yeah, sure.
So we have to flow. But part of what I'm thinking, the persons have been hired, but I'm thinking what kind of, though I will recommend this training for the chap, but for now, how do we integrate the team so that we can work well? Because somehow those on ground are feeling that it should not be so and all that. So somehow, even if I'm not directly their head, I've been moved to general services, I still interface with them. So I'm thinking how we can build the team and make things to work smoothly.
That's a delicate one. First, I see a lot of management ignorance when it comes to who the right person to run the facility operations should be. The biggest challenge I used to have then was they want an engineer with hands-on experience. And I always come back to say, guys, you don't want an engineer with hands-on experience. You want somebody with managerial skills. Who is going to manage those with hands-on experience, right? So I've always grappled with that. So, but this is the first time I'm hearing of a preference for an architect, you know, and I really wouldn't be surprised, because if you study architecture like I did in Nigerian universities, there's an air of generalism in the way architects are trained. You know, because you have to design for multiple industries and different types of environments and spaces, there's an expectation that your training should open you up to multiple scenarios to be able to manage people and spaces as much as possible. So if anybody has that kind of background, you know, and the fact that the architect is the head of a building team, as they used to say, they would tend to want to tilt towards an architect. But in reality, management, and this is for all of us to learn from, when recruiting, don't start from who you want or what you want, you know, in terms of a person specification. Start from your objectives, your goals, your mission, right? And define that role against what you want to achieve. If you look at it critically, you will realize the right person to fit that particular role might be completely different from the stereotype you formed in your head before. For example, you've looked at your objectives, you've looked at your assets, you've looked at your operations, you look at strategy you are deploying as an organization. You may find out that not knowing what to fix or what screws and nuts or bolts to work on has not been the problem. You'll find out that the problem has always been managing people and managing perception and managing customers and managing contracts and make sure there's compliance. You understand? By the time those things now come out and you're not looking at it clearly, it tells you, it gives you a different picture of who to look out for. If I do that every time I go out for recruitment, I end up recruiting people from all walks of life into the shortlist for interviews, okay? But your challenge now is a new person has come in, and it has a learning curve in terms of culture, right? And then there's going to be not only that culture challenge, but also the integration challenge. Integration in the sense that people will feel a bit, you know, disfranchised, as they say, like disconnected. You know, why not us that have been here, that have all of this experience? The answer I'll give for that is everybody must understand that before management makes a decision, if they ask for our inputs, take it and give the inputs. But the moment a decision has been made, your original ideas or your thoughts, bury them completely and align. So that's the advice I'll give everybody in that team. Forget all what you had in mind that you wanted to advise management with. Once they made a decision, your job now is to align, to the extent that even if this new person is making a mistake, you will humbly offer to help than to criticize, than to try to prove a point that the person will fail. Because if you try to prove that point, in every way the person will fail. Because you are the one that knows the ground before the person came in there. And you can set that person up deliberately to fail, right? So if you decide that this person will not fail because you are supporting management, not because of the person per se, but because of your alignment with management strategy and management decisions, then all of you will succeed together. So it's more of a hearts and minds kind of reconnecting situation. And I hope the person is smart enough to look for informal leaders, using informal networks within the team to penetrate the team as quickly as possible. Because if you alienate any part of the group or any individual who is powerful already in the group, you are not doing yourself any favor. Okay, so I hope he's smart enough to also look back and say, you know, and then recommend training like this to start with as a startup program. We have a class starting in January. You understand? Recommend, oh, I've been in this class, it's been so interesting. share some of the information, and then get him in here, right? So that would be something that would be very helpful, and then he can grow on from there to other training. Many people have been in our industry for years, 15 years, 20 years, right? You would think that because they've been around for so long, some of the things we discussed as best practices in this class, they will already know them. You won't realize how much of bad practices are being perpetrated by very experienced people in the industry. So I think it's a good opportunity to just get that, sync, everybody talking one language and seeing eye to eye if he comes in here to also participate in this program, okay?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Welcome. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen now. Before I share my screen, I need to let you know that the field trips are already being planned. Usually we try to have a variety of facilities for the field trips for this class. And so I would encourage class members, either the facility you are managing or the one in your organization managed by another colleague, please volunteer facilities for Baraka to schedule site visits. When we come on the site visits, we will try and document the advisory that you will get. So it's something that is going to go on a specific inspections with ideas on how you can improve on that site. And I'm sure management should be happy to have us around. We normally do our site visits 2 hours max. We arrive at about 10 or 11, and by 1 o'clock we're out of there. The whole idea is not to be too intrusive, but to be able to learn from you on the site what your operations practices are right now, and then get a feedback while we ask questions. We also give you best practices for improving your operations and documentation. Okay, so we'll be looking forward to a lot of your nomination of facilities. But at the end of the day, once you say, I want you to come and look at this facility, have a focus in mind for maybe plumbing systems, maybe electrical systems, maybe building management system, maybe a combination of soft services and landscaping and refuse management. Because at the end of the day, there are so many things that you are probably struggling with that you need some kind of professional backing to sell to management. So buying this idea will be very helpful. And then the other members of the team will learn from that process. Because when we talk in class continuously, it's also good to come to site and see some of the things we're talking about in locations, okay? Afik, your hand is up.
Yeah, hello, sir. Like, how many sites you visited? Is it just
we normally plan to do 3 sites per class, but if you guys decide to do 5 or 6 sites, I don't mind. I'll go with you.
Okay, sir. At least what I was thinking about is maybe from my own perspective, maybe we have maybe one in banking industry, real estate, maybe airports, different different places, different settings. That is just
for the last 4 years we have done estates, quite a handful of estates. We've done a mall, couple of malls. We've done office complex. We've done yes, office complex, high-rise buildings. We've done I think we've even done open market once. We've done an open market once. We've done you know, where they sell spare parts like air conditioning spare parts in Ebutemeta. We've done that a couple of times too. So the outing is a variety, you understand? So and we want as many variety from the class as possible for us to be able to get an enriching approach. What we do basically is, between myself and another faculty member, whenever we're going for any location, we have faculty members on ground to translate what you are seeing into what you've been taught in class, okay?
Okay, sir.
All right, thank you so much. Let me share my screen. Let me know when you see my screen, please.
I can see your screen.
All right.
Still here.
Thank you. So we're going to be looking at the various models deployed within the FM industry. Organizational structure. You know that one of the key elements of facility management is people, right? And people will do the work that we give them. But if we don't organize them properly, if we don't have a structure, a relationship or a hierarchy between them, we may not be able to deliver service effectively. Okay, so FM is not a job of a one man, it's always a team kind of work. So how do you develop or set up your departmental structure? How do you organize yourself? What are the considerations that you should have when you are taking on any of these contracting models like IFM, that's integrated facility management, or TFM, total facility management? Those are the things that we'll be looking at in today's class. Let's start with this impacts on performance and costs for facility management. Facility management operates at 3 levels. We call these the 3 management levels of facility management: the operational level, the tactical level, and the strategic level. Let me start from the strategic level. What happens at the strategic level is that decisions, long-term decisions, long-term plans, visions about where we should be, that's weird. Who did not?
No, sir, it was not from your side. I muted the person. Take on, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks. At the strategic level, you make decisions around your corporate or departmental or business unit strategy. What is our long-term goals? What are our strategic facility plan? What our site master plan for each of our locations? And all of those things we talked about that should be in our strategic planning are the things we do at the strategic level. At this level, we're not talking about budget, we're not talking about expenses. We're talking about long-term decisions like what maintenance strategies are we going to deploy? What investment decisions are we going to make about financial decisions on major investments? What kind of policies and procedures are we going to have in place? What kind of technology are we going to deploy? What contract strategy are we going to deploy? Now, this is what happens at the top. There are very few people at that point. And that's why we say the resources is at the tip of a properly sitting triangle. It's small. The resources required for strategic level management is fewer people and systems. But the cost implication, the cost of those decisions, performance, cost, and efficiencies that comes out of strategic level, that's why the other triangle is inverted. It is huge. If you goof at the top, in terms of having the right persons, right people with the right systems and the right thinking and processes in place, then you're going to cost a whole lot more in inefficiencies. At the tactical level, the expectation is that you already have a strategic plan. So you're creating budgets and project plans and activity plans to ensure that you can implement. All right. So that's what's happening at the tactical level. So it's a level at which, if that's the level where you operate, that's all that you do, or that's where you start and finish, you will not be able to achieve your optimum results or your excel, because you'll still be losing a lot in alignment and efficiencies and effectiveness, performance improvements, because you won't have a direction. You're just going to be doing things, as they come at the tactical level. What the strategic level does is give direction to the tactical level. At the tactical level, you have all those budgets and, you have all of those contracting strategy, you have, all of those, things you want to deploy on a 1-year plan, for example. If you create an operations plan where you have duty rosters, where you have, and then you create a maintenance program where you have a set of activities that needs to happen at certain intervals. You have a budget that tells you activities and expenses or costs that will go into the revenue that will come at so and so time during that year. You are at the tactical level of management. The operational level is actually the level at which you get hands-on. That's where you perform the work. And that's why you find the base of the triangle. There are more people at the operational level. If you have one manager at the top, you can have a set of coordinators, supervisors at the tactical level, and then you could have, a massive number of people at the operational level who are actually implementing what tactical planning has developed. And tactical planning that governs operational level is governed in itself by strategic level. But look at the reason these triangles, this model is like this. If you have a base of a huge number of people, no matter how good they are in what they do, without the direction that comes from the tactical and the strategic level, they really can't perform magic. So the performance will be small compared to the performance that can come out of the strategic level. For you as a facility manager, where do you want to be? I hear of FMs, sometimes being challenged with having hands-on, being able to, maybe you have to have been a mechanical engineer or an architect before you can now take on facility management. You can now, take on roles above. Now, that is normal. If that understanding is that at the specialist level, you are the shop floor. If I am a technical person in generator, for example, I'm a specialist in generator, I should be at the shop floor, face to face with the generator. It's only when I have now become a generalist, maybe a mechanical foreman that now manages other mechanical skilled jobs, now be able to scope work and scope contracts and develop budgets. I'm now moving to the tactical level. By the time I now get above where I can now manage multidisciplinary teams, for example, and take decisions as to strategic activities or strategic direction for the organization, I have moved up. Your aim as an FM is not to remain at the shop floor. Your aim or your goal is to move up and become a generalist, not a specialist. Is it hotter or cooler at the top? You might want to answer this question for yourself, but from my own experience, if you get to the top, it feels as if it is hotter because the buck stops with you. If things are not working at the bottom, you feel the heat. You take accountability for all that's happening below you, right? So it feels really, really hot. But if you understand what you are doing, can put processes in place, can deploy the right systems, you could actually be free, especially when you have a motivated team at the shop floor. So this is very important to consider when deciding where you want to be in the industry, okay? All right, so let's look at the first concept to discuss here, operational models for facility management department. You could have your facility organized, your team organized as a customer-driven team, where most support for highest demand services are organized into business units. There are custom service, fast response, flexibility, and reviews are linked to customer objectives. In essence, in a customer-driven structure, you that's leading the FM organization, you that's leading the FM department, you don't create an organizational structure that you throw into the business unit. The business unit creates their own structure, you observe how they work, and you deploy a team that serves them. For example, you could be, in those days, I'll give you a typical example. I manage all of Shell portfolio in Warri and Port Harcourt, the base location. And in that portfolio, we had hospitals, like really well-equipped, large hospitals too. We had recreation clubs, 3 recreation clubs with golf courses, with all kinds of recreation facilities. We had a full-fledged commercial airport. We had helipads, about 3 or 4. We had office complexes, 2, in fact, 3 major office complexes, right? Made up of possibly hundreds of buildings, high rises, low rises, and the rest. We had residential estates, 3 large residential estates that could house hundreds of bungalows, duplex, and flats. And then we had recreational, more of guest houses. I will not call them recreational, but more of hospitality services. 3 of such services existed in that portfolio. I could go on and on, right? Now, for such an organization, you cannot just deploy the same kind of structure to serve every of the industries represented by the various property types, okay? So you have to create a structure that responds. For example, my catering structure was different. I had a camp boss and I had other positions in the catering FM team compared to the FM teams that were managing offices and residential. And that was also different from the kind of team I had in place for the utilities, who were managing power, central cooling, and such other, and water utilities. So that's a customer-driven approach where you respond. It is what the customer is doing, how the customer wants to achieve his work. You create an additional structure that fits in there. That's what the customer-driven model does. So don't say this is how FM is always organized. When you have customers, for example, you could have a chain of hospitals in your portfolio. The way you would create your structure, the kind of positions you will create in that structure will be very different from if you are running a chain of airports, for example. So that's customer. And then you have the office manager. The office manager is when you have a single facility, most of the time leased, sometimes it's owned, but it's such that the FM activity requirement is not so intense, not so heavy to require hiring a facility manager. So you will now have an office manager who does FM work, who does HR and admin work, receptionist in some cases, and so on and so forth. Most of the FM activities will have to be outsourced. You'll have a list of vendors who come to do routine activities and who come to repair things when they fail, right? So that's an office manager model. It's for a small organizational structure where you don't already or necessarily have the need for an organizational structure, but one person having to do FM mixed with lots of other activities. And then you have the one location, one site, a single owned facility or campus that they operate a staffed full service FM. May have subordinate managers for major functions. So when you have a one location, one site, like a university campus, for example, a university campus might be can be so big that the FM team can be in their tens, right? Or even hundreds, depends on how big that campus is. One location. So you may not be having things like regional manager or area manager. You would have people in that hierarchy with different names. For example, cluster manager for a certain area of buildings. If you are dealing with a residential cluster within the campus, or you're dealing with teaching areas, facilities, you would have someone who is in charge of this type of facility, lecture or academic area facilities, who now has FMs under him or her that are responsible for this faculty and that faculty and so on and so forth, right? So you could have a hierarchy that could be 3 or 4 levels, and yet it is one site, one location. One location, multi-sites. This is talking about when you have a major central location and you now have like a hub, right? Like a hub and spoke facility array where you now have multiple sites around that one central location in a major city. So if all your facilities are located around Abuja and you have your head office in Abuja or something like that in Lagos, then you can see that you may have a lot of control from the center, which is the hub, over what happens in the branches, which are the spokes. Okay, so you could operate 100% centralized decision-making, centralized procurement, centralized materials management, centralized pool of teams. For example, you could have all technicians pooled in one place where if a job is needed to be done anywhere among those sites, you can deploy a team. Then you now have the multiple locations, region or division led. These are large dispersed organization in one country. Headquarters confined to broad strategy, tactics, real estate, high-level space planning, policy setting, operations and maintenance handled on site. So basically, if you have a nationwide spread, like most of the banks in Nigeria today, you can say, yes, you now have all of those regional this, regional that, area this, area that kind of subdivision, right? And that would be different from the one location, multiple sites, and different from one location, one site. Same thing applies to multinational. If you are having multinational locations, it means that you have facilities across different countries. So the multiple locations approach in terms of structure would have worked, just that not every country are the same when it comes to HR laws, for example, when it comes to designations of people, when it comes to work procedures and timing of work and the rest, even currency, how we handle currency as it relates to the work that we do. So you will need to now have an understanding of the differences between country to country if you are managing a multinational team. And this might mean that you will not be able to have a single template that you can roll out from country to country, right? So you can have different countries with different templates, a structure that fits the operation that they have in that country. Even if you are going to design changes, it will be changes based on what you feel is best for that operation in that country, which may be different from another country. Okay, so know your basics. What are the things that you should have at your fingertips as a facility manager? What are the things that will help you decide? You know, when I talked a while ago, I said you need to know, start from your inside. You need to know your business. You need to know your organization. You need to know what you really want to provide as a gain to the organization. What is the relevance of FM service to the organization? And the way to ascertain that is to understand the organization itself, understand your facilities so well that whatever you are prescribing, whatever kind of person you are trying to hire, whatever kind of team you're going to put together, whatever type of structure you are trying to put together, will perfectly align to your organization. There will be less arguments if you have this information in your fingertips. So let's start with what basic information you need as a facility management manager about the facility you manage, about the organization that you serve. We start with business requirements. What are business drivers? Business drivers are basically the kind of activities that leads to expenses, the kind of activities that lead to revenue. That's business driver. If these are the activities we perform that drains money from our purse, and these are the activities that we perform that puts money in our purse, we are talking about business drivers. The FM should be involved enough to know what is the core of the business is part of. What are the needs, constraints, and planned budgets, planned business changes? Is there a direction that I'm aware of that we're going as an organization? If I know, if there is, I need to know. Are there annual plans? Are there annual reports of past years? Are there projections for future plans? We need to know as facility managers. And then when the organization has certain strategic targets, like expense reduction, footprint reduction, whatever organizational requirements are, which are all drawn from the strategy of the organization, the FM should know. It's part of your basics. So every time an FM comes to me and complains about something him and management does not agree on, I always say the FM does not know his basics. Your basics starts with business requirements. What is my organization trying to achieve? Why are we in the market? Who are we serving? What's our purpose in this industry? What role do we want to play? What plans do we have in place? The FM should know all of this. IT plans, requirements, constraints, technology utilized, and so forth. I've seen FMs where you teach about some software and they say, oh, to be a nice software, we should try and deploy software for our operations, right? Only for them to find out that the IT department is already set up on a framework, an IT framework that will not integrate the software you want to bring on board. Is it not okay for you as an FM to know what IT framework? If you hear of server, the IT guys say they have server. Have you ever asked every day, what kind of servers are we even using? Are they Oracle, Cisco, Microsoft, Dell, whatever? What kind of language our IT system built upon? Okay, Number two, your site data. When we say you cannot manage what you don't know, this is the first one. Your asset register. That includes your asset hierarchy. Your asset hierarchy breaks down all your spaces in hierarchical formats, and then all the assets that are in those spaces are identified in your asset register. If you do this, you will know the square footage of every space. You will know, you have additional information like who uses which space, what is this space doing? The money we spend on this space, how does it contribute to the organization? Okay, are we the owners of our properties? If we don't own our properties, how much of properties that we have in our portfolio are owned, and how much of it are leased? How long do we run our facilities operations hours? Types of spaces, operations, customers being served, and so on and so forth. So basically, what this is basically saying, as an FM, get a grip of the facilities you are managing. If somebody wakes you from bed today and ask a question about anything regarding your facility, you should be able to pop up and answer because you know, because you've done spreadsheets containing data that you have analyzed, you've done charts and graphs where you've used data that have been accumulated over time to create analysis that helps you understand exactly what's going on. For example, it's possible to know how many square meters per person in my facility and have that in my head. So when somebody says you have 112 people today, we want to bring in 40 more, you can do a quick calculation and say, right now we have 112 people, on the average, that translates to 15 square meters per person. If I bring in another 40 people, that would drop to 10 or 11 square meters per person. Is this within several standards? Is this within building compliance standards? It's important that we have data. And then the services. What services do we provide as an FM team? Which ones are already captured by our lease agreements? Many facility managers have lease agreements and service charge, which means there is already an amount being paid by your principal, by the owner of the business to the landlord. And that amount that is being charged as service charge should have a, what do you call this, a management service agreement or a service level agreement. An agreement that ties the service to the money that is being paid when the rent is pushed out. So you as an FM, you're supposed to be your job now to ensure that that service is being delivered so that the organization keep getting value for that investment. Okay? Be able to understand the corporate organizational charts, total number of people employed by the organization, or at least those working in your facility that you are managing. And then be able to use that data to trend how we are coming from behind and how we are going in terms of the future. Okay, and then some companies have, this direct in-house staff. These are our own employees versus, these are the ones that are not our employees who are also working here. They don't expect you, the facility management team, to provide the same level of comfort and provisions for employees versus non-employees. Otherwise, they would not have any need to segregate them. In Shell those days, we had, people who work for Shell, those who work at Shell, those who work around Shell, those who work in Shell, and so on and so forth. We have different colors of ID cards. You can have a Shell ID card, but different background just to differentiate your class, right? And when a facility team is going to respond to a provision of facilities for work, that dichotomy between contractor and in-house staff is always there. Service levels are not often the same, okay? Because of investment costs. HR might be involved in insisting on setting standards for internal staff, which the contracts that contract staff are being invited to come and implement may not be able to afford such level of accommodation standards, okay? So it's important that we as facility managers know all of these differences as they pertain to the organizations that we serve. And then when you have contracts, I came to meet these contracts in place, this is how work has been going on, this is how much has been paid in the past. Do you understand the contract terms? Do you understand the contract terms enough to be able to provide value to your organization? Service level requirements, the scope of work, which is the statement of work, the other information that that contract should, you know, when you're going to implement a contract, you should understand the contract. If you don't understand the contract, you are definitely not going to set up properly to implement and execute a fit for purpose or effective contract. And then other special requirements for your facilities is there's going to be fitness, daycare, special executive C-suite areas, VIP lounges. What are the service levels for each of those? What kind of services do you provide? As facility managers, you must have a full grasp. And again, when looking at this, don't start from the service provider point of view, please. Always start from what is adding value to my organization in defining the services that will be provided to the organization. It's only when you fully understand the organization that you cannot decide that this service will be needed, and then you can now move on to the various contracting to get the services in place. And if you did meet contracts in place and you need to do a revision or review of those contracts, it's important that you also understand the organization very well so you can have the kind of inputs that will make sense when you revise those contracts. Then as an FM, costs. You must have a full grasp of the costs of running your facilities. Historical costs, expenses borne both in CAPEX and OPEX of the past, your current, your budget into the future, and well into the future. Not just next year's budget is just a one-year budget, but your capital replacement and renewal budget, which uses life cycle analysis to map out replacement costs over time. It's important that as an FM, you have a full grasp of your cost. And the kinds of data, we keep talking about metrics, the kind of data that you need to show that you have control over costs are costs per unit basis, what we may call cost drivers. If I know that my cost of electricity goes up by kilowatts consumed, then that automatically is a metric, cost per kilowatt hour, for example. If my cost of water production goes up because of the number of people in my building, I should have cost of water production per person, for example. So these are ways to actually have information about costs in your fingertips and documented. And then again, accounting requirements, because when you spend money, the accountants have to journalize and take them out of journals and put them in ledgers, and from ledgers they'll do reconciliation, and they will deploy all the various cost, revenues, and expenses into cost categories, in a chart of accounts. If you as an FM is part of spending money, part of buying services and goods, you must know how to charge those. You must know how to charge those cost elements into the various accounting cost centers and cost categories. Because if you don't, you'll be either making work harder for the accounting team and you'll be seen to be incompetent, or you could model up your costs in such a way that when historical data is being extracted it will be skewed. It will look as if you spend more money in the area where you've not spent more money because you've been charging in there conveniently. You've just been coding it wrongly. And that can be a disaster for your profession as an FM. It's not something you want to gamble with. Now to the big one, performance. What can you use to demonstrate performance as a facility management team or facility manager, showing the relevance of what you do, the impact of what you do? There must be performance metrics to be based on two broad categorizations. You have the service levels, which describes how well you are doing particular services. For example, a service level for cleaning, we'll be talking about how clean a space is, how free that space is of certain dirt and impurities, right? Now, that is one way to do your performance measure, your service level agreements, right? Which measures how well you're performing each of those services. Now, the other one is the key performance indicators. Key performance indicators measure, watch it and listen very carefully. They don't not necessarily measure how well you're performing a service. They measure the impact or relevance of that service on the organization. Key performance indicators does not measure how well. They measure why you are doing the service. What does that particular service contribute to the achievement of our strategic objectives? That's why they're called key performance indicators. So if you are telling someone that, oh, KPI for cleaning contract is no dust, no stain, and so on and so forth, you may have to ask yourself, how does dust and stain affect my organization? If I am in a pharmaceutical organization where the slightest dust or stain can pollute a whole batch, for example, then yes, that item will be a KPI. Okay, but if I'm not, that item will just be an SLA item. It will not be a KPI. A KPI for cleaning in a productive environment, a knowledge environment, a brain work environment will most likely be illnesses and absences from work by people you are serving. So if you are breaking down often, oh, tummy ache, this and that, it might be because of indoor air quality issues. It could be because of hygiene failures. People are getting infected within the facility. That could be a key performance indicator, because when people are not working, the business lose money, isn't it? So if I measure people's continuous stay at work, enjoying their workspace and feeling very comfortable in their spaces, and that's my own cleaning services, what is helping to provide that, that can become a KPI for cleaning. And that's why you could have several KPIs for different facility management services as the same. You could have the same, a KPI for cleaning being found in KPI for security, being found in KPI for maintenance, and so on and so forth. The whole idea is you're measuring what is relevant, what is critical to the organization. You're measuring the impact of that service. That's what KPI does. So learn that difference. So take, for example, customer satisfaction index. How satisfied are your building users with your services? You can tie that directly to their productivity. They're not complaining, they use the toilet, they're happy, they have drinking water, they're comfortable with the environment, ambience is okay. You can tie that to their productivity. So you can have that as a KPI to say customer satisfaction index went from 60% to 70%, right? And that CSI index, that customer satisfaction index, can be a KPI for all your service. You can monitor it for security service, you can monitor it for catering, you can monitor it for cleaning service, you can monitor it for all your services. And as far as that key performance indicator, that CSI is improving, you can tie that to a KPI and say, we are doing well as a facility team. Now imagine where your cleaning team is getting better and better at making sure there's no stain, there's no debris in your facility. And when people are given opportunity to rate your services, they rate you low because of the behavior of your cleaners, who are either smelling, or they are not showing up to work on time, or they are not, whatever thing that makes them to rate you customer satisfaction poorly. You cannot use your service level improvements that we are not cleaning very well. We are not recording just 10 rework, for example, instead of 100. We're not recording 2 stains noticed by customer management during inspection instead of 50 stains on walls and floors, for example. That's SLA. If that's not translating into customer satisfaction, then our key performance is low. So CSI most likely will fall under KPI measures. Now, issues. What are legacy issues that you came to meet? What are issues that you have created with your hands? What are issues that you... What are issues you may be having with regulatory compliance, for example? Are there union issues? Now, you should know, because you take decisions on an ongoing basis, and these issues will be used to moderate or mitigate the kind of decisions that you make or take on behalf of your organization. So let's get into the crux of today's lesson. What are some of the components of organizational structure? The first most significant component of organizational structure is the structure and culture of the organization. These are 2 very different things. Structure is what you have on paper. Just the way we say, what's your values? Oh, these are our values: integrity, sustainability, customer focus, and so on and so forth. But culture is the way we think and the way we do things in the organization. Culture is the unwritten order of things, as it were, where you have behaviors, where you have way of taking decisions in the organization. Why are these important to how you create your organizational structure? By the time you are creating organizational structure, putting teams together, how they relate to each other, how they communicate with each other will be factored in. You could create a very flat system where everybody reports to the center, or where people can talk to each other and there's not much pressure on the center. But if you have a culture hierarchy where people have to look up to somebody and do things just in one particular direction, take approvals, for example, for every step you make, and so on and so forth, you want to create a structure that is hierarchical as well. Okay, so that's the consideration. You also have the level of centralization. How much of decision making and actions, management actions, have you centralized, right? So this also affects your structure. If you have decentralized a lot, which means the head office is only doing strategy, for example, and pulling out policies and procedures to guide the branches, you will need more empowered people, highly skilled and experienced people leading the branches, who will need to take those decisions that have been decentralized from the head office. But if you have a central decision-making point where all analyses are done at the center and actions are implemented at the branches or regional level, you may be able to deal with a structure that uses low level, even internship teams, to deal or handle the branches. And then chain of command. There are these two concepts called chain of command versus span of control. Chain of command is vertical. The levels that exist between the shop floor and the top is called the chain of command. So if you have managers, supervisors, coordinators, officers, and then semi-skilled workers under them, you have created a 5 or 6 level chain of command. Now, a span of control talks about the number of subordinates that reports into one particular person. All right. So if I have 5 supervisors under me, and each of those supervisors have 10 workers under them, what we have just created is a chain of command of 3 levels. My own span of control is 5, whereas each of my supervisors have a span of control of 10. Now, why do we discuss them together? If you create a flatter organization where you have a shorter chain of command, which means the levels between the bottom and the top is shrunken. So you probably just have, for example, a managing director and so many managers who report directly to the MD. That is a very, very flat organization. Okay. With that level of flatness, you run the risk of having too many managers report to the MD, which means his span of control becomes so wide that he may not be able to coordinate effectively each of those managers, right? So he may now need to put in another level in the chain of command by coming up with a general manager or a set of general managers and say, instead of me to have 14 managers reporting directly to me as MD, I want to have 3 general managers. So 5 of these managers can report to one, another 5 report to one, another 4 report to the 3rd general manager. What has happened is that my chain of command has been increased by 1 in order to manage my ineffective span of control. And then there's also the line versus staff management. Line management is the vertical chain of command with specialization increasing lower in the hierarchy. Whereas staff management is horizontal chain of command that cuts across vertical chains. How does this work? It works in either a functional, structural versus a matrix. In a functional, structural organizational structure, your line management is what runs things. There's a hierarchical chain of command. For example, I'll give you the FM industry. There are some organizations that still operate. So you have the head mechanical maintenance, and then you have the head electrical maintenance, and then you have the head catering and the head sub-services or landscaping and so on and so forth, right? Now, as they have those heads, when they provide services, they have teams under them that are specializing downward. For example, the mechanical, we have a generator specialist, we have an air conditioning specialist, we have a plumbing specialist, and so on and so forth, right? So that's how your chain of command works in a structural or functional. Structural or functional is the same type of organization. You as a staff report to a certain boss. Everything is up, down in that hierarchical manner. Now, but in a staff management arrangement, you can have those head of mechanical, head of electrical, head of catering, and so on and so forth, but they are providing services to customer clusters. In providing services to those customer clusters, They now have teams that are now embedded into facility management teams for those customers. So so what I now have is a two-way direction. I have facility manager in charge of the residential area on one side, on my right side. I now have the head of mechanical up there. Whenever the customer needs a mechanical service, generator or air conditioning, the FM has somebody in his team that takes care of that mechanical service. But that person also has a head of mechanical to report to. That's why it's called a matrix. So the head of mechanical is the head of department for mechanical, but the facility manager is the head of department or the owner of the customer group that those hierarchical teams are providing services for. This same model of this matrix model can also replicate itself when you have a typical organization having projects to execute. We want to build a new project. We now have a project manager who we need to work with somebody from IT, somebody from HRO, somebody from accounts or finance, somebody from FM team, somebody from, and so on and so forth to form the project team. At that time, the organization has turned into a matrix organization because each of those staff that you are pulling into that project team are now having two bosses. They'll have to report to their primary team and they have to report to the project leader, okay? And so depending on the kind of activities you're engaging in your facilities, the kind of customers, the kind of strategy you have in place, you decide whether to go matrix. And I can tell you, for FM industry, anything that is not matrix gives confusion to the client. A client does not need to know that there's a head of electrical and a head of mechanical when he's asking for an AC. The FM is supposed to deliver an air conditioner to him. And so it's not an internal thing to us how we run those other departments. But as far as the customer is concerned, the facility manager provided ABC service. So the matrix approach where one person is responsible for providing multiple services is most effective in the FM organizational structure development. If your facility leased or owned, this is also going to be a determinant on the kind of structure you create. For owned facilities, there is a tendency to have the opportunity to employ more people in-house to create a full-fledged department. For leased facility, much of the services are already being done by the landlord. The remaining ones could be contracted or outsourced completely. And you may not necessarily need to have people in-house who are going to be managing different aspects of a facility. So that's a determinant of something that contributes to your decision on the kind of structure you put in place. And then spatial differentiation. How widely dispersed geographically are your facilities? And then, like we said before, when we're talking about specialized services, standardized or specialized services will also give a lot of input into your structure. If all of my facilities that I'm serving are basically the same, I can create a model facility maintenance team made up of plumber, electrician, this, that, and say, this is the team that will be deployed from state to state. Whenever I open a new site, we just deploy one team to that site, right? But if every time we open a new site, it's going to be a different kind of business, a different kind of organization, different kind of facility, different kind of facility mission, for example, I cannot just have a standardized way of doing things. I'll have to have multiple approaches. And most of the time it will be customer driven. And then another factor in structure, the organizational structure, is relocation and churn. How often do people move in and out of the organization and within the organization? That's what churn is talking about. If you have a high rate of turnover, a high rate of moving people, you will have to create a structure that responds to that. So this also affects the kind of FM structure. In fact, in one of my operations in the past, we've had a department for moves. We had a department for furniture maintenance. I will now have a department for move management, people that do relocation, move furniture from one point to another, and set people up in one office or the other. So we'll take a little break now, and then we'll come back to start looking at the functional structural organizational model, and go from there into the various FM contracting models. Okay, 5 minutes break. Okay, let's get back to it. So I was giving you the example of the functional, structural, organizational model, where you have the hierarchical structure, specialized functions, line management, and vertical chain of command. The CEO, the VP under him, under the VP, you have 3 positions. So that's span of control of 3. A chain of command of 4 levels in this case. And then you see the facility manager having several positions under him. So specializations, happen downwards in this kind of functional structural model. Now, this is what I was describing as the matrix model, modified functional structural model, both line and staff management and dual reporting relationships. So basically, you have somebody in all of the vertical lines also reporting horizontally in a matrix organization. So let's look at FM delivery models. As facility managers, we would have encountered different delivery models for facility management services. First thing I want to draw is a line between management and services when delivering facility management. Management is all of that strategy, planning, coordination, implementation, decision-making. Services are the specific shop floor day-to-day activities that we perform. So I could have plumbing as a service, electrical maintenance, borehole maintenance, and so on and so forth as services, but there is a need to manage and coordinate all of these services to provide exactly what my customer wants, right? So that's, if I'm doing that, where I have all the management in-house, the staff of the insurance company is a facility manager. They also have a clinic supervisor. They also have a catering supervisor. They also have a driving coordinator, a driver coordinator. They have this, they have that. All of those management teams being in-house means that you are delivering your facility management in-house. You are not outsourcing management at all. But in the traditional in-house delivery model, you could be outsourcing your supply chain, people at the shop floor, which is services. I could have a vendor who brings food. The catering manager or supervisor will be my own in-house staff, but the food is coming from a third-party vendor, right? I could have a plumbing supplier who supplies spare parts, or a plumber who is an external to my organization. But mechanical services or plumbing services supervisor will be an in-house staff. If I have a complement of FM team that provides management for the organization, we call that the traditional in-house delivery model. It means that from the strategic to the tactical is all in-house. In fact, even at the operational level, it's also in-house, but the supply chain is outsourced. So that's why you see that color shade. The supply chain is the service providers. So this is called in-house FM service delivery. Now, this model could also be deployed or deployed by a facility management company that is contracted to provide services to a client. If I'm contracted to provide services to a client, I can decide to employ everybody to work for me in-house while I'm providing that services. Or I can decide to use contractors, subcontractors to provide the services. I coordinate them, the report to me, I report to the client, right? So for the Demand organization, in-house delivery model is the staff of the organization is the one delivering the whole management of that facility management to the organization. They take all decisions: finance, procurement, audit, people management, finance, procurement, health and safety, project management, technical. All the decisions are taken in-house. Okay, this is different from an outsourced model. We'll get to the outsourced models. If you get to be more robust, the larger facility group, for example, hard and soft services can be split. You cannot have a hard FM, a soft FM. You could have people working under these two managers. It's still in-house. It's just that as we get bigger, we create more what I may call chain of command to segregate duties and to specialize further. Now, this is the first level of outsourcing of management. You know, in the traditional in-house delivery model, you are doing outsourcing, but at the service level, never at management level. You're not outsourcing management at all. So a plumber, a technician that's independent of your organization can be engaged to come and work for you. The person who supervises him, scope the work and process his payment is a staff of it. That's the traditional in-house. So you cannot call that outsourcing because you're not outsourcing management, you're outsourcing services. Now, why can't we call it outsourcing? Because facility management is providing management. Our profession is providing management. So if you are providing management in-house, we call that insourcing. It means that you are providing management in-house. You are not outsourcing management, even if you are outsourcing tasks and services. So the IFM model has 3 levels. You have the managing agent. In the managing agent, the client takes charge of all its strategic decision-making, decides on what kind of contracting model to deploy, decides on everything about his facilities, but he outsources the entire management of the facility management to a third-party contractor to supervise and advise and provide off-site support. The client is still the one that has in-house teams that manages the supply chain. In essence, the contracts are still in place between the service providers and the client team. But what they have basically done here is that they have outsourced the day-to-day supervision to a management provider. So the client in this tactical level, you hear somebody like a contract holder, for example, the person who is in charge of putting the contract, putting the budget in place, ensuring that the risk is done, risk analysis and risk management is done for the contract, ensure contractors are paid, and so on and so forth. That would be an in-house person. But the person who advises on how the contract should be structured, the specifications, the performance metrics, the reporting templates, and all of those that are going to the contract is a contractor. It's an IFM contractor. We call that IFM contractor a managing agent. If you see the relationship between the managing agent and the supply chain, it's dotted. It means that the contract is not directly with the managing agent. This particular IFM model is similar to what was operated, in fact, was still being operated by organizations like Shell and even MTN today. They have this model where there's a management team that is outsourced. Their job is to supervise their supply chain. And while supervising the supply chain, your own is to tell us that they have done well or they have not done well, like a QA/QC arrangement. They call them quality assurance or quality control managers. Their job is to ensure that the service providers do their job well. They supervise, they sign off on job completion certificates and things like that. So this is the first IFM level integrated facility management. That's IFM is integrated facility management model called managing agents. And then you now have the second level when you want to deepen that outsourcing of management more. You now have what we call the principal contractor. In the principal contractor model, the client has a relationship with one FM company. That FM company is the one that employs all of the management team. In this particular case, the in-house organization does not reserve tactical decisions. They don't do budget, they don't do costing, they don't do any of those things. It's done by the contractor. The contractor is a one-stop shop to the clients. And that contractor, which is the IFM contractor in this case, the principal contractor, is the one that has contracts with the supply chain. So the plumbing supplier, the kitchen supplier, all of them have contracts with him, not directly with the clients. He outsources most of the services and provides just management. That's the principal contractor. The third level of the IFM is called the self-delivery total FM package. This is where the principal contractor transforms himself into a service provider. So he's providing all the management, but also providing the services. So instead of having a cleaning contractor, security contractor, catering contractor, and all of those contractors that he has to contract with, he can now decide to employ people directly to provide all those services, so that you will not have multiple uniforms on the site. You have only one uniform from one IFM contractor. This is called a self-delivery or total FM package. There are certain specialist minor services that they can allow to go out. For example, cleaning of high-rise curtain wall, they can allow that to go out. They can take care of elevators, assign that to other people. They can do, maybe a medical laboratory service, or a medical clinic. You can outsource those. But most of the services will be done by in-house personnel of that contractor. So if I were to look at the three models of the IFM again, managing agent, it provides supervision. The contract with the service providers are not directly with him. Principal contractor provides all management and is the owner of one single contract with the client, and is the owner of multiple contracts with all the service providers that report to him. Okay, and then you now have the total FM, which is the third IFM model. The principal contractor now transforms into a TFM by directly employing everybody. Instead of having contractors or subcontractors in your employ, you now have staff reporting directly to you under this model. So what's driving this integrated facility management in our industry now? You realize that most organizations have buildings. They need to get their buildings to perform for them. But managing that building, or managing that facility is not their core. It's not their core. They want to be able to focus on their core business. And if you now say you are using traditional approach where you are employing so many service providers, you actually give yourself more work. Because what you are doing in this instance is that you are spreading yourself out, trying to manage people, and this is not the core of your organization. So outsourcing management is a good option for large organizations. One FMSR provider will provide results of service or management for the entire portfolio, right? You could have different regions given to different IFM companies. The whole idea is you handle all the management, you handle all the services. We could save costs as well as a business. You might think that because the IFM company will have a profit or a margin, that it is foolish for me to outsource. The profit they are making, the margin they are making, is actually from their efficiencies, from the better way they know how to do it, compared to me that don't know how to do it. That's the truth. So giving them the job to go and do is allowing them to use their own expertise to make profit for themselves. You, at the end of the day, as a client, will save a whole lot. Will save a whole lot from that process of using IFM organizations or companies to run your services. And then operational integrity will be improved. This is their core business that you are importing into your business. Those efficiencies are things that I wouldn't know how to. For example, someone who's managing a hospital may not know how to negotiate and how to specify a lot of the facility services that we do. We have been doing this. This is our business. And then risk will be minimized. The risks are more obvious to those in the core than those of us in the service industry than those in their various core businesses. Okay, and then we can deploy improved processes, best practices, and continually improve our business continuity and emergency preparedness. The IFM model for large organizations and large departments is really something that cannot be overlooked or ignored. It's most organizations are doing there, but we find a situation in our own domain, our own environment, where there's not been many companies, there's not been enough companies that have developed the standard and capability to provide IFM services to the kind of supply or demand, I would say, in the industry. So some organizations will look out, they'll do a bid. First, they don't know how to package their bids, and we're going to talk about that as well. They just say, oh, come and look at our facility and give us a proposal. That's wasting everybody's time. That's happening every day. They don't know how to package it. So they don't know how to go out and find the right contractors. And at the end of the day, they get their fingers burnt. They end up pulling back their services in-house or their management in-house. They start employing people. I've seen organizations that employ an FM contractor, after a few years, poach the workers of the FM contractor, cancel the contract, and pull the management back in-house. And that's very common. And so that's one of the risks that you need to consider when taking on such an FM job. A non-poaching agreement has to be in place as well, just so that you don't get circumvented. The IFM or TFM approach has several benefits, whether it's, the IFM, we said the IFM model is 3 levels: managing agent, principal contractor, and the TFM, all right? And some of these benefits are what we can outline here: less skill or knowledge to procure. You don't necessarily need to have the FM skills as an in-house staff. Cheap, of course, one invoice. You pay one person for all your services. Small organizations with no in-house skills. Service components can be at the right quality level for its area. Service component can be changed at any time. Management components can be brought back in-house without losing any of the service components. You see what I was saying about a client, taking management back in after a while, and then it should achieve best value. Some of the benefits, that's what we're talking about here. But limitations, management may be poor, because I'm engaging a contractor, but I don't know how to manage that contractor. That can be an issue. Difficult to terminate an unsatisfactory component package. Again, when you bundle all services together, if you are not satisfied with one aspect, you you almost be forced to live with it, because once the contract is in place, cutting off one part is difficult, except you've already written that to the contract. Insufficient incentive for the outsourced management to reduce costs. And this is particularly terrible for contracts where you provide a percentage as the fee you pay to your management provider. All those, is it 10%? Is it 15%? Is it 5%? When I hear all those arguments, I just laugh. And my answer is always, that is not facility management. Whenever you are talking percentage, because anytime I help you spend 1 million, you give me 100,000 as my fee. Why would I help you spend 1 billion? So I can get 10% of 1 billion. Why would I be trying to cut costs for you? Why would I be trying to be efficient and effective in running your site? So that's the thing. But if the management is locked in and say, provide me management for all of these services for 1 million. Right now, my expenses are 25 million. But for every million you save for me, I will give you extra 100,000. Ha. Now we are talking. I'll take the 1 million as my fixed management fee, and I'll be working to reduce your 25 million by 10 million. Because what that means is that by the time I bring you from 25 to 15 million, I'll gain another 1 million, which is 10% of the 10 million that I saved you. That's exactly the kind of thing that will close this limitation. Okay. Part of the startup information requirements, this is talking about the information you should have regarding your facility. We talked about the information you should have regarding your business, the organization you are serving. That's what we did when we say know your basics. You can't manage facilities without knowing those basics. Beyond those, you need to have information about the facilities that you manage. So this is under one of those line items where we say understand your facilities. The vendors, subcontractors, their contracts, lease agreements, the information of the landlord, financial data on how money has been spent over time, utility bills. You have to have the records in place so you can be able to trend and track how bills have been going, accounting requirements, IT requirements, org charts, site information, including drawings, service level requirements, equipment listings, maintenance records, building rules and regulations, permits, key contacts, emergency numbers, incident reporting procedures, emergency response plans, business continuity requirements, fire and life safety program. All of these are things that you should have in place to start your facility. So if you have these as things that you should be working on one by one, the level of how many you have done after working in a place for maybe a year is a determinant of how successful you've been in your profession. So if I don't have all of this in place, how long have I been on that site? Which one am I working on right now? Which one do I already have? Which one am I going to work on next? Are the kind of things we're talking about here. So don't say, I didn't have my startup information pack when I took over. Start now to create your information pack by yourself. That's what this is about. Before you outsource and transition from in-house FM to integrated facility management, where you now outsource management, it's important to have this due diligence. I've seen situations where contracts are put in place from top management, and we're invited, oh, you won the contract, come and take over our facilities. The internal work that should have been done to communicate this change and get buy-in from stakeholders has not been done. I have gotten my fingers really badly burnt in several of such deployments. Okay, so ensure that people understand what change is happening. There's proper communication, and then let people also know how it's going to affect your organizational structure. There was one team I trained once, and they were so jittery about the coming IFM program the organization was trying to implement, that they felt all their positions were going to be vacant, they were going to be fired, and so on and so forth. I had to spend 2 straight days teaching them how to move from operational mindset to strategic mindset, so that they can begin to do the things that will show their relevance in the organization, so that they don't see their jobs as no longer. Because if you, as an in-house FM, you are always the one checking the level of diesel, counting the number of tissues in the store, and so on and so forth. When they are outsourcing FM in your organization, they're not going to outsource that service. That's one of the basic things to outsource. And if you've not turned your head around to start, strategic planning and creating tactical plans and how to supervise and manage service levels and KPIs properly, for example, then of course you won't fit into the new arrangement that is coming on board. So that transition needs to happen. Ensure that incumbent staff understand what's going on, and there's knowledge transfer between those who are leaving and those who are coming to take over. Make sure there's a final contract, perform due diligence on the contractors, create some contractor contracts, so that if you are doing IFM2, which is IFM1, which is managing agents, for example, these guys are going to come and work with you. You have to have direct contracts with your subcontractors or your service providers. Set up technology and service desk, establish communication plans, set up accounting and operating procedures, develop a risk mitigation plan, and obtain detailed information and records about the operations. So if I am brought in as an IFM management provider, I need to ensure that all of these due diligence are done. I need to ensure that there's enough communication, transfer of knowledge between those who were there before and my team. Otherwise, you just come and they will make sure you fall into a ditch because you think you knew it. I remember when I came in from the UK to manage the Shell IFM, I was sent to Warri, and I was supposed to work with the Shell site manager there. I don't know what they communicated to them about my coming. They said, oh, one expatriate is being brought in from the UK to come and show us how IFM is done. So everybody's goal right from day one was, show you how, and me that time too. Me, I don't used to look face, so I'll put my FMP, SFP, CFM, line all my buttons on my suit collar like this, be showing and be speaking grammar. From within the team and the client team, it was a very humbling experience for me. I had to, become very, very humble, because you hear some things and you know that even your life can be threatened, can be in danger in such environments, right? So transition is a big deal. Until I learned how to relate, how to, because that transition should have been done by the client organization. They did not do it. They did not have that. In fact, they actually appointed a change manager. That change manager, I never saw him once. He never came to my rescue. He never did any orientation with the people on ground. I was just left in the deep, as if everybody planned that we will fall flat on our face and then we will be kicked out. In fact, a few months into that contract, my colleague in Port Harcourt was, in fact, his contract was frozen. He was kicked out, actually, and was asked to leave. They had to come and learn how I managed to navigate the political system in my own area, and brought me to Port Harcourt to see how I can help to smoothen things with the stakeholders and get back the contract running again. So sometimes transition is a big, big issue, and it takes a lot of effort and focus to get it right. All right, so that's our lesson for today. I'm going to give you a 5-minute break, and then we're going to have a discussion. So look through your notes your questions, your comments.
Sir, you skipped the one slide. You didn't explain. The second to the last slide.
I did. Wait, let me see. This one, I did deliberately because I've already talked through it before. What we're doing, the advantages of what we're doing, the advantages of IFM or TFM. Yes, it's basically the same thing: reduce costs, streamline operations, simplify process, improve operational efficiency, improve service delivery, reduce management complexity, drive consistency across the portfolio, gain economies of scale, leverage spend, enhance ability to share information, introduce best practices, improve global delivery, improve data, technology, and reporting, drive continuous improvement, provide a more flexible, scalable delivery model, and understand how to plan on an orderly transition. So the whole idea here is, why should the company want to outsource its management of its FM services? What are the drivers? What is motivating? So it's similar to what we discussed when we talk about the advantages of TFM or IFM. So that's why I just moved them. Okay. But if you have specific questions, you can ask, no problem. Yes, so let's see. 2 minutes, let's take a 2 minute break and I'll be right back, okay? Okay, let's get back to this. What questions do you have for today's class? All right, Manuel E. Good evening.
There's an explanation for the TFM and the principal contractor. So I was hoping if you could give us a quick run through again, because it was a bit fast for me, so I didn't get it.
Okay, the principal contractor subcontracts the services.
Okay.
The TFM does not subcontract, uses its own direct labor, except for a few specialist services.
Okay.
So if you see an FM company that has their cleaners, their staff, their maintenance crew, their staff, their chefs and caterers, their staff, their security guards, their staff. You understand? That's the TFM company.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. And a very important lesson for all of us here is, where do you want to be in the FM business space? We have a class for FM business, right? Where you decide you want to set up a company in this industry. You will find out that if you already equip yourself professionally as a consultant, or as someone who is has risen to some level in the industry, you can provide management. But most people that come into the industry start from the service area. They start as a labor supplier. They start as general service repair contractors who repair things for clients and supplies. Some start as a cleaning service provider. They'll just be doing cleaning, providing cleaners, and before long, they start expanding into other areas of maintenance. And then over time, they will take over the FM space. So I've seen some companies set up as FM companies, no job. And a cleaning company is, elevating himself into a TFM company, taking all the jobs. So there are two areas where FM as a management area, as a business, is being encroached upon. One is from the construction angle. Builders and construction firms are beginning to stay back to handle services and management, right? So they are grabbing it big time. Developers are developing estates and forming an FM department overnight, right? To take off the FM and the management. And then others who are trying to creep in will now come in as service providers. Oh, I want this water treatment. We take care of water treatment, or cleaning, or security. Over time, they begin to find their way into taking the FM service management. So we see this a lot. So if you sit back and say, I'm a management provider, and you don't already have one of these approaches to get experience and gain a portfolio, you may never win any job. We in Max-Migold, for example, we stayed as consultants and trainers for 5 years, right? And it was more like we're giving to the society continuously, always training and equipping people to become better and better. But we're not seeing the money the way those who are on the shop floor doing operations on a day-to-day basis are getting money. So we now said, okay, you know what? We are going to start bidding for jobs to win FM contracts. And then we faced a stark reality. For a good 2 years, we couldn't win anything. And what was the case? Where have you done FM operation before? Oh, don't worry, we are the ones teaching them how to do FM operations. All the FM companies have been trained by us. They said, no, you don't have a reference. I said, okay, that's the case. Even if it's a small one, let's start from somewhere. That's how I started taking up bids. In fact, it's this 2021 now that we really started going into bidding for. And all the major IFM contracts that have come out in NIPEX, Mobile, Shell, Aeroton, oil and gas, just name it. Anyone that puts a bid out now, we are ready to plunge it, because we've gained a little mileage from the step we've taken. A few years ago, and this is a lesson that many of you who are going to go into business will need to take. A company came in to say, we want to establish in Africa, we want to buy up some companies who are in FM space, convert them into our brand, the European brand, convert them into our brand, and use their portfolio as a launching pad. But we must have companies that are valued at $50 million before we can invest. We shook the whole Nigeria like this, pack all the FM companies together, try to modify their books, make it look fast. For 6 to 8 months, we could not make them value $50 million. And interestingly, 2 cleaning companies in Nigeria had more than that value. So that can tell you exactly how how things can be seen. You can be seeing things as this is the big area, but where the money is in the place where you thought was a small area. I had a friend that started a cleaning company, and within 2 years, had 100 cleaners in various locations for different clients. The kind of money this person was making from cleaning within 2 years, the FM companies that used to engage them, FM companies who were engaging cleaning companies could not afford that kind of revenue, to the extent that this cleaning company is now able to bid for FM jobs and knock off FM companies because they even have a fatter financial model. Model a while ago. They have a ticker. Daniel.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I was just hoping, I just wanted to just drive you back to the second slide. I think the one that has that organizational, the triangles. That is the three tier. If you could just please just kindly just maybe briefly just go through it again, please, so that one can actually understand the significance of those blue and brown colors and the levels you talked about. I just wanted to just go through it a bit again, please.
But do you understand the 3 levels of strategic management?
I do understand the level of the strategy, the tactical, and but there was one comment you made actually initially when you talked about it, when you said that if you look at the tip, it is smaller. I just wanted to just.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's this one now. Are you seeing my screen? Is it the
does it
slide you want to see?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Does it.
So what to learn from here is a good head will give higher performance than good subordinates or followers. That's the whole idea of these 2 triangles.
Okay.
If you are very good strategically, everything at the bottom will give you results.
Okay.
So when it comes to performance, when it comes to results, focus more on strategic planning and strategic reasoning and strategic whatever strategy, because that answers why. Everything below strategy will not give you commensurate performance. If you have someone who is at the top, who cannot take right decisions, whose decisions are always leading to rework and lead to failures and leading to bad outcomes, no matter how well those at the bottom know what they are doing, they are only good at doing what they are told. And whatever they are told is coming from the top. That's what we're talking about here.
Okay. So could you kindly explain that the performance that from the top to the bottom, that is, I understand this resources side. Now the performance side now that you just
it aligns. It's a small bit of resources at the strategic level provides a very high outcome at the performance level.
Okay.
So as I'm thinking right strategically, my overall performance is boosted, right? Compared to if I'm not thinking right and taking directions well. Take for example, I tell my staff that our strategy is that we're not going to use technology to do anything because there's a lot of labor demand in the market. So I'm going to employ 100 of you or thousands of you, and I need you to run very, very fast. right? No matter how fast they run, the performance I'm going to get is going to be small. That's why the triangle is inverted, means that that tip there is all the performance I'm getting from the very effective operational level.
So sir, hello, sir.
Yeah.
So in essence, what you're saying, if I get you, as a lead, if you provide good leadership and understanding of what your deliverables and strategies should be, in terms of getting to know your SOPs, getting to know what your deliverables should be or how they should go about it, if you're able to imbibe in them those values, they're able to give you fine deliverables at the level of operations. That's what you're saying.
That is it.
Okay.
Because control is from the top.
Okay.
Results is detected by decisions taken at the top.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I get you, sir. It's okay, sir.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right, thanks everybody. I hope you've had a good class. This class has questions, so please do it now. We still have some time. Sit down and instead of rushing up, just sit down and do the questions, all right, and submit them. Francis, you want to ask the last question, right? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah. The startup information requirements. You know, you from your explanation, you just use the scenario of an ongoing facility. What if it's a new one that is regarding the vendor, getting the list of vendors and contracts? And so in a new organization or a new facility rather, you have to do it all by yourself from the beginning. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, that's why you need to be involved in operational readiness as part of the documentation process when they are building a new facility, right? These are the things that you need to focus on when working with management teams, project teams. For example, they invite different vendors or contractors to install certain things. Get the details of those contractors and have it in your vendor contacts. You understand?
Yes.
Get the permits. If they install the light diesel tank, who gives them the permit? Get the permits. If they do this and that, all the setup. This one is more like an old facility, but you can still apply it to a new facility. All the things that are relevant for your operations and maintenance, you need to have them in place. Okay.
Okay. So well, in a case that most of these guys, you know, we Nigerians now, we don't like to get permits because we want to spend money on it. Are you in a position as an FM to challenge, because you are not the owner of the property? You are just trying to
just recommend to the owner that you need it and they go and get it.
I will go and get it, or
oh, yes.
people. So
if
I have
those
to
who have built it have built,
yes.
handed over to the owner and they have left.
Yes, that
the
is a different case. You know, you mentioned that operational readiness means I have to get involved with the developer from the scratch. So now we are at the stage of building a tank farm, a tank for the diesel. And those guys, they are not, they know how to do the job, but they do not collect permits.
Yes.
Of course, I can go and meet the developer and say, get these guys to get permits so that
exactly, that's your job. That's your job.
But you know, okay, I understand. Okay, when I get to that bridge, I'll know how to fly because I've started telling. So I mentioned to a developer that because he told me that getting an approval. So we are applying for building approval. And the guy running the approval from Alausa said, most times it's good to use their own architects to do all the, to use their own drawings, structural, engineering, electrical, and so that they can get approval quickly because they know the parameters, what government needs to see. Now, from the developer is saying that that is the normal thing, but me, I'm not using their own. I asked him, but I will need it so that when I'm running the facility, I know where the electricals are and all the plumbings. He said, yeah, we know how to build it now. I said, we need it. So now he's doing me a favor by giving me the facility to run. I cannot force him to spend money to get something that he doesn't want to get, which is our standard.
Now, for that site, has he gotten approval?
His approval is coming in a week time.
So that approval, he got consultants to do the drawing for him, isn't it?
Not him. So this is really happening in the industry. I'm sure you know about it.
Mm-hmm.
In Alausa, they know the standard code of buildings and everything. Developers, most of them are just millionaires and want to go into business of developing, building houses. Of course, everybody can build. I can build a house. I just plumber, call electrician, all of them employ. But the developers will not spend money on getting all the necessary documents. They just want, they know once approval comes out, side to know if they want approval, and they believe that okay. I'm trying to, it's not to.
Stop it, don't worry.
Oh, it stopped already.
Yes.
Okay, now. Can you hear me better, sir?
Yes, your audio is better now.
Okay, so the people in charge, the agency in charge, they don't have time to come and do site inspection to know if you have gotten all the right approval and permits. Once they see your approval number on your gate, they believe that this guy is sorted, especially if he's one of the guys in the office that you are dealing with. In this case, this is what we are doing. We are dealing with one of the directors. So the guy just said, you know what, I will use my guys to do all the normal drawings, engineering, that government will approve quickly. But the developer is not going to use that. He's going to just use his own experience and build. You understand? So how do I force him to do his own? Even if he's going to build according to his own experience, at least he should do his own structural drawing,
so
electrical drawing.
What you would do at the basic level, there's no way he will not draw at all. He must draw, isn't it?
Yeah, he has the normal drawing.
Yes. Take that one.
The 3D and all those.
Yeah, take that one as your baseline drawing. Because that one can give, if they build according to the drawing he made, that's your as-built drawings.
Okay. So I can use that.
You can use that. All you just do is, as they are building, you'll be checking to be sure that it is fitting with the drawing, because they could just change, wake up one day, say, oh, this staircase in this place, move it to this side. You understand? And that change will not be reflected in the drawing. So you will not tell him that, you will not do a small sketch to show that change and tell him that you need a draftsman if you don't have the AutoCAD skills to do that change on your own drawing. You can click on your own drawing, do it. If not, get a draftsman to do that adjustment on you, so that you have something that resembles what was built at the end of the day.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Daniel, you're back again.
Yes, sir. Please, sorry, I'm going to take a bit of your. I just have a little interest in some of this particular topic and some of the questions I want to ask.
Okay.
All right, sir. Out of experience, actually, I want to know some things. For a building, fire certificates, water treatment certificates, and the sewage certificate. Is it the responsibility of the facility person who takes over the management of the facility to get the certificate, or is it the project managers or the clients, I mean the stakeholders, I mean this time around, the owner of the building, or the people who have handled those construction to get this in readiness for handing over to the person who's going to manage the facilities, or is it the facility manager who goes to take them? This is the first question.
Now, don't go to the first one. Let's answer them one by one.
Okay.
If all of those things you listed, all those permits and approvals, they all belong to the owner.
Okay.
If the owner did not appoint the construction team or anybody in before the FM time to get them for him, the FM becomes the responsible party to get them because you cannot operate the facility without them.
Okay.
So the FM, ultimately the buck stops with the owner, but the FM in working in compliance needs to ensure that he get them.
Okay. 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 Thank you. Then the second thing I wanted to ask, if this being the case, and we already have, like you said, that allows some people who know the codes and who have this permits and everything, it then means that these people entirely do not do any checks on buildings actually when they're being done or when they're being handed over. For them to leave all this now until they come and start bothering you and say, we didn't see certificate for this. We didn't see certificate. We are going to lock up this building or something like that.
You know, Nigerians, we like taking shortcuts that eventually become long over time. Every time you have such an arrangement with anybody in those approval office, your approval is annotated as a future business for future officers.
Okay.
They will mark you down there. If I am retired, anybody takes over tomorrow, business day, this file, this file, this file, this file.
Really? Wow.
So those still doing these shortcuts, going around, getting fake approvals up and down, or getting an approval with one drawing and building something different, they are undoing themselves seriously. I have many of them in the mainland here. When those guys will come like this, at the end of the day, you will pay and pay and pay. Another group will come, you will pay and pay and pay. Before you blink, another group have come to steal off your property.
Seriously, I've seen that enough of
information. Me, I've collected my own, but business, that's fine. Go. And if you go, you will chop. That's the danger of going illegal.
And they will never tell you, the best ways to correct these things so that you mitigate all those coming back in the future.
If you see the calculation, one of my students sent me a calculation of a penalty they dropped for them just a few days ago. Almost 6 million.
Oh boy.
Whereas if he had done the right thing at the onset, if I'm not even spend 1 million officially. So what are we talking about? There's no gain in bypassing all those processes. Just pay for it. If you get a consultant, an architect who has a seal, and you give him some architect now, there 500K, so they don't free design for you. 500K, I'm telling you. They will do design for you, they'll put their seal on it. If they put their seal on it, who is that person in that government approval agency that will now say, I know the building code more than them? Because they all use the same code. It's the same building code they all read.
Yeah.
But two things makes developers to bypass following due process. One, the genuine architect that will put his seal will not build your house against the fence, for example. That's what you want, which is against the code. You understand? Okay. All of those things that will not give you approval, they will not do it. So you will bypass that architect and that consultant who knows the code. Okay. You will go and meet these unscrupulous regulators who are supposed to be the one enforcing it. They will be the one creating drawings that show that you have met the code. In essence, they file a drawing for you that is compliant.
Okay.
That's what they do. They take your money and file a drawing that is compliant, all requirements met.
And which is not conforming to what is on ground.
That's not what you're building. You and them have an understanding you are doing something different. They will leave you, go and build. Enjoy the temporary relief until the next person picks up that file and say, let's go and eat money there. They will just come, seal your site. So why do you want to go through that?
Wow. Okay, so the last
sorry, Mr. Daniel. In most cases, sorry, Mr. Daniel. In most cases, it's because most of them they sell the properties, and of course, when they come from Alausa, is the person that buys that is going to face this.
the brunt. Okay.
Exactly.
So does it not make sense that means it makes sense if you want to buy a property to check all of these things, but we don't. Most people don't.
No, we do. The day I went to buy something here in mainland, there was a canal nearby. When I charted it, the land, the GPS charting points of that land encroached on the canal by just 3 feet.
Wow.
You say you do, sir, because you are a professional. You are 1 out of 1 million people that buys property. I'm serious. Most people who buys property from this developer, you know, that is the next frontier business in Nigeria, maybe Lagos. They don't check because they operate through an agent. The agent will just say, I found the house, they take the videos, they say, well, I like this one, 75 million. They come to see the owner. So they don't check. And it's because we believe that governments, they don't come in 100 years, even though we know that they will come.
I think it's too much money that is affecting people. If you don't have too much money,
it's too much money.
If that's 75 million, that's money that you have saved for 25 years, you won't pay it out any.
Yes, it's too much illegal money, not too much money.
Okay, so let me just ask this last question, sir.
Okay, yes.
I know for a fact that some good companies and probably FM companies wouldn't take jobs if they don't have good documentation vis-a-vis drawings and other things. So in one of my experiences, one of the hotels I managed in the past, due to the discrepancies between what we have on ground and what is actually in the drawings and what is supposed to be, I recommended at some point that probably we should find a way of getting actual drawings, that is redoing the drawings. Even though the building is standing, you get the architects who come and do. Although it was an argument, we didn't even go into it. I just want to ask you from your own perspective as an architect, is it practically possible to be able to represent a building that is standing already?
Yes.
To redo the drawing and bring in all these features, even those that are buried and those that are concealed, all those things, to depict actually what the building is.
Yes, we do. We do that. We do that as a service, actually. We call it measure drawing. You measure and you reproduce the drawings right now. So for those that are buried in, if there are points where you can check, for example, where there's a line for certain level of sockets, there's a level for certain cables or certain pipes. You can get a point and estimate and indicate them inside the drawing, and you'll not be far away from reality. Yes. So we do that. We do that. That's one of the services I started out with. When I was in architecture school, I was getting interested in facility management. Measure drawing and material schedule for maintenance were the two services I entered into first, and it was very profitable. I still do it till now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So basically we'll consult you when we have those kind of issues.
Oh, yes, so we'll put a team together and get it done. Sure.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening, and please do your assignments, okay? Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Bye.